Good morning. Welcome to the Belararox Maiden Resource Estimate presentation. We'll just wait for a few more guests to join before jumping into the presentation. Chris and Neil, I think we'll give it 30 more seconds and then we can start the proceedings.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, I think we can kick off now. So thank you so much for your time, everyone, this morning. So on the line today, we have Neil Warburton, who's the non-executive chairman of Belararox. We also have Chris Blaser, who's the exploration manager. So they're going to steer us through the presentation today, and then we'll take questions at the end and read out any other questions that have been emailed in advance. So I will hand it over to you, Neil, to walk our guests through the latest update. And also Chris will step in with any sort of technical information or questions as well. So over to you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Julia, and welcome everyone to our webinar this morning. It's a very key investment highlights that we're going to go through this morning, and also the exploration upside. So without further ado, we'll get started. Can I just say that if anyone would like to ask a question, please send them in writing through to Julia. She's taking the questions, and at the end of the presentation, we will then attempt to answer those questions, both Chris and I. So we'll get started now. If we go through to page 3 on the presentation, these are the key investment highlights for Belararox. We've had a very exciting 9 or 10 months since we listed in early January. We're very, very excited about the outcomes that we've had during that period of time. Not only releasing our first maiden mineral resource estimate, which basically highlights that the original historical resource, which was not JORC compliant, is actually there, which is fantastic news to us. Just on the resource, the phase 1 drilling, in actual fact, was only contained within the envelope that we believe the historical resource was conducted in. So we didn't drill outside that envelope, and the next steps, of course, in increasing those resources will be done in phase 2 and phase 3 going forward. We've got significant potential, exploration potential, and Chris will go through that later in the presentation, not only at Volara, which is our main project, but a kilometre away at Native B. There's a significant exploration potential, not only at depth, but also along strike. We believe we're only just scratching the surface. The next phase is intended to scope out the size and dimensions of the resource at Volara. This could be quite exponential in the resource estimates. We just don't know. There's no drill holes, and I'm going to go through a little bit of detail when it comes to that exploration potential. The share register is tightly held, and of course we're well funded, as everyone knows who is an investor on this call, that we had an oversubscribed capital raising going back about a month or so. So we're very excited with where we're at, the company. We've had a very, very good start to our corporate career, and we're looking forward to obviously expanding the resources of Volara. If I go on to the next slide, this is just really our tenements and the location map in New South Wales. If I look at the left-hand side of the slide, you can see a black outlined exploration license that contains the Volara and Native B mines. You can see them up in the top right-hand corner of the black outlined tenement. And there's a trend that basically goes north to south, geological trend that goes north to south. The two other exploration license applications are highlighted in orange there. They're basically almost approved. We have all the native title issues, agreements now finalised, and we expect those to be granted to us before Christmas. They contain a number of exciting projects, and Chris will go through them later on. You can see where we're located on the right-hand side. We're between Dubbo and Mudgee. There has been quite a bit of rain in our area, like New South Wales, and we are now hopefully through that phase. So these are 100% owned. Our total tenement package is about 643 square kilometres. And as I said, we're really only just scratching the surface from around the old historical mines. There's a huge amount of upside for us to explore in the coming years. So moving on to the next slide. This is a plan showing the two project areas that we've drilled in phase one. On the left-hand side is Volara. Each of those squares, those white squares you see there, are 100 metres apart. So effectively, the drilling that we've now completed has a spacing of approximately 100 metres by 100 metres. As you go further north, which is to the top end of that plan, the spacing becomes wider. And Chris will explain the next phase of drilling at Bellara. On the right-hand side is the native B plan of the drilling, very sparsely drilled. The outcropping of the ore zone, you can see in red, that's approximately 200, 250 metres in strike. And this is where I think a large upside in our exploration potential lies. So we're very, very excited about that. And we obviously are well funded to now go into phase two and extend these resources. Moving on to the next slide, and this is, I want to spend a bit of time on this slide. This is a long section of Bellara. So it's really a heat map showing the higher grade areas, not only from our recent drilling, which all the significant drill results are included on the right-hand side of the page, but also the historical drilling. So we drilled, as I said earlier on, within the envelope that was the historical resource to actually infill certain areas that had no drill holes to bring it up to a inferred resource status under the JORC 12 code. That was the aim of the initial program. If you look at the left-hand side and the zinc equivalent, you can see that the purple and the red, the purple is above 6% zinc equivalent, and the red areas are above 4. So without being an Einstein in geological interpretations, for the general layman, you can see the width of the higher grade zone. So if you take the southern area where the red zone starts and go to the north side, which is the right-hand side of this slide, that's about 600 metres in strike length. And it includes the old Bellara shafts. And you can see that it's plunging and dipping to the north, and it's actually getting stronger at depth. So our high-grade area there obviously is part of the new resource, but more importantly, it's open at depth and it's open to the north. We are very, very excited that we're thinking that we're just on top of the main Bellara deposit. There's no indication at all from our drilling that any of the resource is actually getting weaker in depth. In actual fact, we believe it's getting stronger at depth. And again, Chris will go through the potential drilling program on that. Just a little bit about VMS deposits, volcanic massive sulfide deposits. These generally pinch and swell, not only along strike, both north and south, but going down dip. And it actually reflects in this long section. So you can see we've got very high grade areas near surface, just around the Bellara shafts. Then it tends to go into a yellow color. Then it goes back into a higher grade purple and red color. So that's typical. So VMS deposits pinch and swell along strike and down dip, and they also come in clusters. So these deposits are originally formed below sea level on the floor of the oceans from little volcanic eruptions. And basically, as the Earth moves along, these come out and are deposited at the floor of the ocean. So we're very excited that the theory and the practicality of how VMS deposits are actually formed is highlighted in this long section. Just a comment regarding the mineral resource that we released under the JORC standards. The chaps at SRK, which was our competent person for the reporting of the inferred resource, withdrew historical holes that we could not find any survey data, either collar positions of the drill hole or downhole surveys. Now, the downhole, these holes were previously located in that green section, in the southern deeper areas in that green section. Now, they were withdrawn. Unfortunately, they were higher grade and thicker intersections. Now, under JORC standards, and that they were withdrawn, as I said, which basically took out and leaves a hole in the historical envelope that was the historical resource area. So we didn't drill in that area per se. So there's a huge potential, even in the existing envelope that contains the Volara mineral resource, to increase tonnes and grade, and especially the grade at a higher grade. So that's really for noting why I think there was some questions coming back from various shareholders in the last week that the grade has reduced. So we've still got the same area. However, those historical holes were taken out because of the QA/QC of our competent person, that he couldn't actually locate where those holes were within the database, which is natural. That's how JORC standards work, and we accept that. But it does open up another large area, of course, that could be pink or red within the current envelope. So we will be testing that area in the future as well to convert, hopefully, some of that lower grade greeny bluey area into red and purple. So that's a very important note. We're very excited that we've now got an inferred resource. There's a lot of exploration companies that don't. They drill and they don't end up with a resource. But it does now lead us into stage 2, which we're very excited about. The next stage, as I said earlier on, will be used to scope out how big are these resources, how deep could they possibly go, and Chris will go through that exploration upside very shortly. So that's a very good slide for noting. Moving on to the next one, we took a section just north of the Bellara shafts, the old Bellara shaft. This is a section, the ore body, this is about 400 metres deep. The ore body is continuous. It's high grade, it pinches and swells, as I say. And obviously at depth, we just don't know. But as these high grade areas come through, they'll come through one section and then they'll be lower as you go further north on the following section because of the plunge component of the ore body, or the thicker parts of the ore body. So we now have a very good handle after all the due diligence, after all the drilling, after all the QA/QC we've done. We've got a very, very good handle now on where we predict this ore body to be plunging to. So it's quite exciting, and it's highlighted. Obviously, the thicker sections are highlighted on this this cross section. Next one. I think the really upside for Belararox, and especially for the resource increase, is native B, and this is the native B long section. So the shaded area there with the drill holes, this is again the historical envelope. We drilled within that historical envelope. To the north, the ore body seems to pinch out and get smaller and lower grade. To the south, they actually get thicker and higher grade. So you can see hole number 1 and hole number 2, which are highlighted on the right-hand side of this slide, are quite significant. And in actual fact, the total metal content of hole 1 and hole 2, which we drilled, is higher than the historical holes around it and in the historical resource. So this ore body now is very much open down plunge and to the south. Now, we haven't actually drilled. You can see the old native B shafts there on the southern end of this long section. There is no drilling underneath those shafts, and we intend to drill in phase 2 underneath those shafts. So between hole 001 and 002 and that shafts, that's around about 500 to 600 metres in strike length, where there's no drilling at all. There's some rock chip samples on the surface where the ore body outcrops. We'll be drilling under there as the arrows show. One thing to note is that we can fit another Bellara resource quite easily between the native B shafts and our drilling in 001 and 002 within that shaded area. Easily, we can fit another Bellara. Is it there? We don't know because it hasn't been drilled. But if it is there, then the resources have the potential to obviously double very quickly. And that's the exciting part of it. So we've got a huge potential, and this is really where Chris will go through and show you all the work that we've been doing over the last 9 months or so to highlight where the prospectivity is for native B, both along strike to the south and at depth and down plunge. Next slide is just a couple of sections again on highlighting our two higher grade holes, 001 and 002. You can see again that they're both, they stack up very well with the previous drilling, wide space drilling. However, they did come into our inferred resource, which was good. The SRK competent person put them in, which was fantastic. However, they were slightly lower in tonnage but slightly higher in grade into our JORC compliant resource. So again, these VMS deposits pinch and swell along strike, and they also pinch and swell down dip. But it just illustrates again that they come in clusters. This is about 900 metres to 1 kilometre away from Volara, to the south of Belararox native B. So we're very excited that there's more of these. Where they are, we don't know. This one outcrops at the surface. There could be other cluster or resources that don't outcrop and are further down dip. The next slide we're going to talk about today is the potential. And very shortly, I'm going to hand over to our exploration manager, Chris Blaser, who's going to go through this. But this is a long section. Now, the squares on this long section to the north, on the left-hand side, you can see Volara mine. The squares as you go south are 1 kilometre squares. So each square is 1 kilometre, and you can see that where Volara and native B are. Within those red areas, and this is our prospectivity map that we've been working on now for the last 9 months, you can see the resource envelope, which is the black outlined area at Volara mine, and you can see at native B mine, just to the north of native B, you can see the black outlined resource area. All these other areas that are shaded red are highly, highly prospective. So they're showing that there is some type of sulfide mineralization. The grade, the thickness, etc., we just don't know because obviously it hasn't been drilled. But what it does show is that below native B and to a certain extent below Volara mine, there's potential that these ore systems go further deep or go at depth, continuous at depth. Now, this is an area map, magnetic, which basically is flowing, of course, and they get weaker as you go deeper. So it's not that the mineralization is not there, but the response coming back from the aeromagnetics is such that it shows that it is getting weaker. We've got other techniques that Chris will probably outline very shortly on how we can actually highlight the prospective areas as they plunge to the depth. So not only have we got strike extent to the south, we've got depth extensions. And it's going to take, obviously, time to drill this out and find how big and how many tons we do have. But there's huge potential to actually extend the current resources. And as I said, we're well funded. We've raised the money about 4 weeks ago, and we're now set to start drilling early in 2023. So I'm going to hand over to Chris now, our exploration manager, and Chris is going to go through the exploration upside. Over to you, Chris.
Yeah, hello all. So as Neil alluded to in this next slide, we've seen the magnetic image again. But this is a plan view now. So very exciting about the phase 2 drilling because we've seen Belararox here to the north is still open. So we're going to target that deep, significant mineralization in the depth to the north of Belararox. That's still open. But what we're really excited about is the south part of native B. We drilled this part, and as Neil mentioned, we didn't drill underneath the actual historical workings at native B, which is 500 meters to the south of the open mineralization at native B. And here in the magnetics imagery, we can see we got another 1K very interesting magnetic signatures here, and that's all highly prospective. So that's just showing the plan view of that long section we've seen before. But what is exciting, it's not only like a magnetic target, we also did some gradient array IP targeting as part of our 9-month works into the mineral potential mapping and the exploration upside potential. So we can see here 1,000 meters down strike from native B as well. We got the chargeability anomaly with the gradient array IP survey we did. And also here in the very right, we have a gravity anomaly. So the geophysics look very promising, and these red dots you can see on top are actually the soil geochemistry anomalies. So we do have soil anomalies as well. So they all line up. We're pretty certain we have sulfides here, but obviously to which extent, which depths, and what exactly these sulfides comprise, that remains to be seen because we have to drill them. So that's what we're focusing on in phase 2. Now, this shows our outline of the current exploration license 9184 we have. So this is 10 Ks here. So we have essentially a good 3 kilometers in our current license that we can cover in terms of the regional prospectivity. However, these ELAs, the applications, they're progressing really well. And this is what we're very excited about because we have the same structural corridor, we have the same host rocks, the same Chesley Formation sediments. So very exciting. And if we have another Belararox mine size at native B, these VMSs, they often occur in lenses. So we have very prospective host rocks to a 20-kilometer structural corridor along strike. So very exciting about that. Obviously, we need the applications to get granted first, but they're progressing very well. But we still have a good 5 kilometers in our current license to explore. So what's ahead? We're very excited. So we did produce a JORC 2012 compliant resource at Volara. Native B has immense potential. So we're going to build on that with our phase 2 extension drilling. Then we have Buddha Boling, which we didn't go into detail in this presentation, but that drill planning and our gold tenements in WA is coming up as well. Then we have in Q3, the extension drilling actually going on. The planning has finalized for these drill targets and the regional exploration. So we're very optimistic that we have the applications being granted quite soon, and that essentially triples our land holding. And that's what we're going to do with geophysical targeting, airborne magnetics, gradient array IP. And we're going to build on that and explore the whole structural corridor 20 km to the south of native P. In Q4, so with the drill results, we will obviously publish the drill results as quickly as we can. We'll increase the resource at Belararox with that deep holes Neil talked about to the north of Belararox. So that's going to be a resource update there. And obviously an exploration targets around the native B, around about a 1K strike length to the south of existing drilling in native B. And define, hopefully with the soon granted exploration license applications, define the regional targets as well. So the summary slides. Yeah, over to you, Neil.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, just quickly, and this is just a summary of obviously what's in the presentation, but we have now obviously released our maiden mineral resource estimate for Volara Native B, and it shows now, one, that the historical resources exist. Two, we actually have very defined high-grade zones that are plunging below the current drilling. And of course, in addition to that, as Chris has just outlined, certainly around Volara at depth and native B mineralisation to the south, there's significant mineralisation, we believe, because some of that outcrops, but more importantly, the exploration potential is really untested. So that's a very exciting thing. Over the next 6 to 9 months, we'll be testing. We're fully funded for that as phase 2 drilling. We've raised the money for that and drilling to commence after wet season. So as we all know, it is still raining in New South Wales in our region there. We are currently out. We've got 4 drilling companies looking now at our tender. We'd hope to select the winning tender by the Christmas time and award that and get ready, obviously, for this drilling campaign to commence in January 2023. So it's the next phase. I think of the growth within this company is very, very exciting. And if we start hitting mineralisation with high-grade mineralisation south of Native B and at depth, then hang on to your hats, because I think we'll all be on a very, very enjoyable ride. So thanks very much, everyone, for joining us. We will now take questions. So Julia, over to you.
Hello. So does anyone in the audience have any questions? I do have two here that have come through online, but I'll give an opportunity to our audience here. Did anyone have any questions? Peter, just checking everyone's been taken off a forced mute. Any questions from the floor? If you do have a question, feel free to raise your hand by clicking the little hand icon. Okay, I have two questions here that came through in advance, and they are pertain to the exploration activities set to occur in Belararox's Q3. So the first question that I will direct to you, Neil, is if you're a betting man, what excites you most about pending Volara Native B exploration over that quarter? The phase 2 extensional drilling, or the regional exploration searching for potential extensions?
Well, thanks, Julia. Good question. I am a betting man, so I really believe that this next phase, we're only just scratching the surface to prove that the historical resources are real, and now we have them under JORC compliancy. So that is step one in a very big, I think, program that we're going to move through over the coming months and years. Is Native B and Volara going to get bigger? Most certainly. We're not going to increase the resource status from inferred to indicated. What we want to do is scope it out. We want to scope this project out to see how big it's going to be. There's a lot of drilling to be done, both along strike, as Chris pointed out, south of Native B resource is where the old Native B shaft is. We're 500 or 600 metres away from where they actually mined ore. They actually mined copper and zinc out of those shafts. We haven't tested underneath those old shafts. In actual fact, when you walk the line of working switch outcrop, there's a number of shafts along that 1.5 kilometre corridor. So we're very excited, and all the IP and all the gravity work that's been done and aeromagnetic work that's been done historically shows that this could be a significant resource. So, the next phase of drilling, and the next phase of drilling will be wide spaced. So we're going to test the potential along strike and some of the exploration targets further to the south. So I'm a betting man, very excited. I believe we're going to hit something. How big, wide and handsome it's going to be, we don't know, but we'll certainly find out in the first half of 23.
Fantastic. Thanks for that answer, Neil. I've got another one here as well, also pertaining to Q3. If the drilling set to occur in Q3 identifies more mineralisation at Volara and Native B, how quickly are we going to see these finds incorporated into an updated JORC resource estimate?
Good question. We're probably not going to be segmenting, every time we drill a hole, we're going to put out a new resource. I think we need to scope it out. We know now by what's come out in our initial or maiden mineral resource, the level of spacing of those drill holes. Now, some of the next phase of drilling will actually be wider than the 100 by 100 metre spacing that we've currently got. It could be 200 metres apart. To drill, obviously, the 1.5 kilometre extension south of Native B mine, you'll need 15 holes if you want to keep going at 100 metre spacing. We're going to have a wider space drilling to scope it out. If they hit mineralisation, then we'll come in and start infilling that to prove up those resources into a possibly new inferred resource. It could take all of 2023 to do that, because we'll not only be drilling along strike, we're going to be drilling at depth as well. And the one thing we can't control, unfortunately, is the weather. So we're right in the middle of obviously this wet season, and hopefully we're predicting in the and the Bureau is predicting that this weather system actually stops around about Christmas this year.
Fantastic. Did anyone else?
Maybe just complimenting there, as Neil mentioned. So in this drilling at Bellara, we're going to have tight spacing because Bellara has the inferred resource already defined. So our deep drill holes at Bellara are going to be tight spacing as well. That can add to an updated inferred resource at Bellara. But as Neil alluded to in Native B, we got this massive strike extents. We have to test what's there before we come back and infill drill. So now it's kind of extensional drilling at Bellara, at Native B to the south.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Chris. Did anyone else have a question? If you wanted to raise your hand, and Peter, just confirming you've taken everyone off a forced mute.
Yes, they're all off mute.
Fantastic. Any questions from the floor? Okay, fantastic. Thank you everyone so much for joining us for this presentation today. And thank you for your interest and support in Belararox. My email is julia@thecapitalnetwork.com.au. Feel free to send me any further questions or queries and we'll be pleased to assist you. So thank you so much for your support and have a fantastic day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.